So this story is inspired by an incident that involves this little piece of metal here. I have lived in the same home for about 10 years, and ever since I've lived here, the bane of my existence in terms of plumbing fixtures has been my kitchen faucet. I always have had to push on it very hard to stop it from leaking on the handles. I've had to push hard, and I've replaced the washers every few months or so, and that seems to help a little bit, but I never wanted to deal with it. Well, once a few years ago, I called up a plumber, and I think he quoted like $300 just to look at it or something, and I was like, well, it's not that bad to push on it. Well, a couple nights ago, I was pushing on the cold handle that I just showed you there, and it snapped off, and the remaining portion that was attached to the faucet, the remaining portion of the handle, cut my palm pretty bad, and it's almost healed now. I don't know if you see the little band-aid down there, but it wouldn't stop. It was a really deep cut, really sharp, and it took a lot of skin off, and I was having a hard time getting it to stop bleeding it, and I wondered as I was going through this process, why did this happen, like, why did I attract this experience? Because I always like to make sense of things that happen, but this just seemed so totally unnecessary, and a real hassle as well. And because I think it's the faucet that came originally with the house built in the 50s, it was old, and I knew it would be difficult to find a replacement. So I took some pictures of my sink. I always call it a sink, but it's really the faucet. And I sent pictures to 6 different online plumbers to look for a part. Had a little ruler next to it, and I thought, okay, I'll do this before bed, and then Friday morning I will have, actually Friday afternoon, since I tend to sleep in, I'll have some responses and maybe a part. And I called a part company, and the person I talked to said she'd call back in 15 minutes. I never heard from her again, and one place said they think they gave me a link to a part, but there was no picture associated with that part, and when I googled the part number, I couldn't see it anywhere, and I didn't want to purchase it till I had a kind of a visual confirmation that it was what I was looking for. And other people just directed me to phone number of the call center for American Standard faucets or whatever that was supposed to call me back and never did. And I thought, this just isn't in flow. This just isn't happening. And even if I did replace the faucets, I will still not like, if I replace the handles, I still will not like the faucet, and it'll still be a drag, and I'll have to replace the washers all the time. So I thought, well, at least I can do is call a local plumber. So the first one I found on Yelp, and it said serving the Crockett area, and I asked the guy, do you serve Crockett? And he was kind of like, well, I could go there. And it was just like, it doesn't take much for me to pick up on an energy and realize this isn't something I want to deal with. So he asked me to send photos of the part or whatever, or the faucet. So I have a wall-mounted one, a wall-mounted faucet, which is hard to find and rare. So anyways, I thought, I think I'll keep calling because this guy has passive-aggressive energy. And then I called a second person who was immediately polite, professional, empathic, just really on top of things. And I thought, this is my place. I'm going to get work done through here. And it turned out, he was able to immediately find the replacement faucet set. $70 was all it cost. $125 an hour for labor, and I don't think they're going to take more than probably half an hour. So on Monday, I will have it replaced. And I think that the reason I ran into all kinds of difficulty trying to find a handle to replace it is that that's not really what I wanted. Now, my resistance in part to getting a whole new faucet was about thinking it was going to be probably more in the range of $500 than $200, and thinking, well, I can live with this, and so on. But I really did want another faucet. I wanted a new one that worked well and stopped easily when I turned off the water. And so I realized that the universe was guiding me towards what I really wanted, which is often the way that it works. But I had to let go of ego about the cost and the, hassle, and just, I also like to avoid having repair people come to my home because you never know what you're going to get energetically. But even though the person I talk to on the phone is a representative who's probably not going to be the person who comes out here, I still appreciated his professionalism enough to feel like that was a fractal of the organization, that they know how to communicate with people in a polite and professional way. And if not, I can live with it. But so anyways, all this situation was trying to teach me was to do what I wanted. And I still thought, well, why did I have to cut myself, because I was uncomfortable. It would hurt, first of all, and also it took a while to stop the bleeding. It was really, really difficult, and when it would stop, then if I peeled off what was stopping the bleeding, it would start bleeding again. So I was thinking about, as this was happening, I was like, well, I just saw the movie Drive, which I had mentioned on my public Facebook page, I believe. I had seen that movie the night before, and it had a scene where a guy bled to death, and I thought, well, is this happening because I'm kind of like watching grotesque films, violent films more than I should, taking in this kind of imagery and then having it reflected, and that might be part of why it bled. I also thought, well, if I had not bled and there was not that level of anxiety about the situation, maybe I would have been more likely to just be patient and get a handle, because I surely eventually would have been able to get a replacement handle. It was a Friday, though. It was a Friday afternoon, so the time I was looking for it just didn't happen. But I could have, and maybe if my anxiety surrounding and attached to the whole situation was lower, I'd have just been patient and get a handle. So maybe with more anxiety related to cutting myself and knowing that if I continue to use this system, this faucet that required pushing on it hard, it could happen again. That would be part of an inspiration for me to get another one. And I also thought for it to be, cutting my palm, that reminded me of, stigmata and martyrism. And I thought maybe this is a message about not being a martyr. And so on a deeper level and connected to the more linear aspects of this incident, take a look at how do I hurt myself through choices and making martyristic choices, giving without receiving, and other kinds of ways of depleting myself, and being a martyr. So putting that all together, I think that this was an example of how just an everyday event can be looked at not just as a horrible or annoying situation, but a possibility for lessons. And I think the big one for me is that if something is not in flow, when I'm trying to fix something, or even in relationships, if things are not in flow, trying to force something isn't the way to go. So if it's clear that you keep running into dead ends and just things aren't working, try another direction, and it might lead you to what you really want.